Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the MLB slate on DraftKings for Monday, April 2nd. We got a 9-game main slate on this Monday. Just going to cover the main slate for today. I know there's some early games, but I'll just be covering the games at night. So 9 games tonight. Pretty bad slate when it comes to pitching. I don't love a lot of the pitching options. Charlie Morton is our most expensive pitcher on the slate, if that really tells you something. We don't really have any true aces. But Morton and Clevenger are two pitchers that are over 10K, guys that might be a little bit overpriced, but with just how gross kind of pitching is today, might really have to consider paying up for him. And there are cheap bats that I like. There are cheap stacks I like. Bartolo Colon's pitching on this slate, so we know we're going to want to target him. Chris Tillman's pitching on this slate, another guy kind of want to stack against. So there are definitely bats we can target. Pitching a little bit different, but you got to fill out 2 pitcher spots, at least on DraftKings. Got to pick 2. We'll kind of talk about pitcher and where we want to go. And of course, I'll get 3 hitters that I like and talk about some stacks, maybe some teams we want to target. But before we do get started, guys, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like on the video. And if you are new and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you click that subscribe button down below, so that way you'll never miss out on any of my new videos. But anyway, starting off at pitcher, if we look up top here, like I said, we got Charlie Morton, Mike Clevenger, 2 guys over 10K, and then it drops down to Tanner Roark, Taijuan Walker, Hyun-Jin Ryu, and so forth. Starting off with Morton, I do like Charlie Morton on the slate. I don't love his price tag, $11,100. That seems like a lot to pay for him, but with just how gross pitching is today, I think Morton is definitely an option. It is a solid matchup going up against Baltimore. Although they got bats in their lineup, they will homer. Definitely some strikeouts in this lineup, especially against righties. Baltimore, we know they struck out a lot versus righties last year. This is a spot where Morton can rack up some strikeouts. He's a heavy favorite, minus 215. With Chris Tillman on the opposing mound, you know the Astros are going to be able to put up runs against Tillman. The Astros are implied for 5.8 runs. The Orioles are only implied to score 3.8 runs, so Morton's a heavy favorite. Very likely he gets a win here. He can definitely rack up strikeouts in this matchup, at least I believe so. He's $11,100, and I know a lot of people are not going to want to pay that price tag for him. But just kind of with how gross pitching is today, I kind of like Morton just getting a guy that I know going to get me points. Definitely has upside for strikeouts as well in his matchup. I do prefer him over Clevenger today. Just Clevenger against the Angels. I think there are guys I think at Morton's like a guy I'd rather play. I feel like Clevenger doesn't have as much upside just because the Angels are a team that we know doesn't strike out a lot. And I'm not sure I really want to pay 10-4 for Mike Clevenger when I can just get Charlie Morton for $11,100. And then guys like Tanner Roark, like Taijuan Walker, Ryu, I'm just not sure I'm really paying nearly 10K for these guys. I'd just rather get up to Morton. Like Tanner Roark against the Braves, sure you could go there, but against the Braves, we know they're a team that doesn't strike out. They're a team that puts the ball in play. Roark has had some success against the Braves, but he's also had some disappointing games against the Braves as well. Don't really like taking pitchers against the Braves, just because if you look at their lineup, there aren't a lot of strikeouts in that lineup. Guys will put the ball in play. And I'm just kind of scared of Tanner Roark here, and especially when he's 90 or 9,900. Like I said, I'd just kind of rather get up to Morton or take some savings. So if we want to go to this mid-range, I think there are definitely mid-range plays here. Chad Bettis is kind of a guy that sticks out to me in this mid-range. Against the Padres, great matchup here. Targeted the Padres a lot last year with pitchers because they were a team that struck out a lot. Weren't the best hitting team at all. Pretty much ranked in the bottom of the league all year when it comes to average WOBA. So Bettis is in a good matchup. He's $8,200, which I think is a reasonable price tag. Obviously, it's not a great price. You would expect, or you would want him to be a little bit cheaper. But baked into the matchup, or just given the matchup, I think Chad Bettis can have some success here. If you look at Vegas, the Padres are implied to score 4.4 runs, which is a little high. But Bettis, just given the matchup, has strikeout potential here. And especially pitching in Petco, that's a very pitcher-friendly park. Pitching in the National League, gets to go up against the opposing pitcher, which is pretty much a free strikeout. So I do like Bettis here if you're going to this mid-range. If you play him and Morton, though, that's really going to thin you out on salary. Let's just see. If we plug in Bettis, that only leaves us $3,800 remaining per player, which you obviously could work around. But there is a guy that I like that's cheaper than Bettis that I think is definitely in play today, and that is Brian Johnson. Against the Marlins, I really like Brian Johnson here, especially because he's really cheap at $6,900. Makes a lot of sense. If you want to pay up at pitcher for either Morton, Clevenger, Tanner Roark, you're going to need a cheap secondary option. I think Johnson is that guy. He's got a great matchup today. The Marlins are going to be a team we target all year with opposing pitchers. Their lineup's pretty gross. They don't have any really good hitters. Lewis Brinson, Dietrich, Starlin Castro, Justin Bour, Brian Anderson, Garrett Cooper. Like, these are just guys I'm not afraid to take pitchers against. Miguel Rojas, Chad Wallach. I'm not even really sure who half of these guys are. Maybe guys like Bour, Castro you might be worried about, but especially Bour versus a lefty on lefty. I would much rather, or I think Brian Johnson has the advantage there. Castro, I guess, against a lefty you could be worried about a bit, but in Miami, in Marlins Park, it's a very pitcher-friendly park, and I think Johnson has a lot of success here. He's got a nice favorite of -154. The Marlins are only implied to score 4.1 runs. The Red Sox are implied to score 5.1 runs, so I think it's likely that Brian Johnson is able to get a win, get you those extra DraftKings points that are always helpful. When he's this cheap, if he can get a win, get you like 15 or 20 DK points, with how ugly pitching is on this slate, I think getting 15 to 20 from your SP2 definitely gets the job done today. So if I'm looking for like a cheap SP2 to pair with my expensive guy, Brian Johnson would most likely be my guy. If we look a little bit cheaper than him, not really anybody I'm targeting. Like when it goes to Tillman, Lopez, Ben Lively, just these aren't guys I'm really going to be considering today. So mainly pitcher for me is Morton, Brian Johnson, and then guys like Chad Bettis, Roark, Clevenger are kind of like my secondary options. But let's go ahead and look for some 3 batters and talk about teams that we want to stack today. I think the Astros are probably going to be one of the more popular stacks today. Going up against Chris Tillman, the Astros do have one of the highest implied run totals on the slate. I believe they actually have the highest at 5.8 runs. So they're a team we're definitely going to want to get exposure to. And the guys in their lineup are not that expensive, really, for what we've seen them be. Like Altuve, Correa, Bregman, Reddick are all under 5K. Springer's the most expensive at 5.2, but if you maybe play like Brian Johnson and Chad Bettis, you can definitely stack the Astros, and I think that's going to be maybe a route that a lot of people take, but it does make sense. Chris Tillman's just such a bad pitcher. So I'm going to go ahead and start off at second base with Jose Altuve, a guy that I really like here. Pretty much really no need to explain like Altuve. We know this guy's a great hitter, has home run potential, has stolen base potential, going up against a pitcher like Tillman that will give up home runs. It's very likely Altuve goes yard. Correa, Springer, wouldn't surprise me if any of these guys hit a home run, if all of them hit a home run, I should say. And even if you get down towards the bottom of the lineup, you got cheap bats like Marlon Gonzalez, Derek Fisher, or at least in their projected lineup. You've got cheap hitters that you could go to. You don't have to just target the studs like Springer, Reddick, and Altuve, or Springer, Altuve, and Correa. But with how cheap Brian Johnson is, if you play him as your SP2, it does allow you to maybe fit in a couple of these guys. And Altuve is a guy that I really like at 4,900 at second base. Can't go wrong with Correa. Can't go wrong with Springer, but I'll just be plugging in Altuve just because I think he's in a really good spot here. Then the next guy I like from the Astros, getting more exposure to that team, Josh Reddick, I think, is going to be one of the more popular plays on the slate, but just makes so much sense at 3,300. He's just way too cheap, in my opinion, given this matchup against Tillman. Tillman got rocked by lefties last year, got rocked by righties, gave up a ton of home runs. With Reddick being 3.3K, that project about second with a team that has a 5.8 run total implied 5.8 run total. Reddick just makes too much sense here. You know the opportunity for him to get RBIs is going to be there. He's going to be able to get runs scored as well. Batting in front of Altuve, Correa. You know those guys are going to drive him in. So love Reddick on this slate. Love Altuve. Love Correa, Springer. You can't go wrong with really any of these guys. But I do need some savings. Since I went ahead and plugged in Altuve, since I paid up for Charlie Morton, got to go cheap somewhere. So Reddick at 3,300. Cheap bat that just, in my opinion, makes way too much sense today. A guy that you should definitely be targeting. Then the other team that I really like is the Athletics going up against Bartolo Colon. So Matt Joyce at 3,400 is a guy that I think is in a great spot here, especially given his price tag and the matchup. Matchup with Bartolo Colon, you love. Bartolo is a terrible pitcher. The guy throws 85 miles per hour, and he throws it right down the middle every time. Gave up a ton of home runs to lefties last year, so don't think anything's going to change here. Love some of these A's bats. They're insanely cheap. Matt Joyce is projected at leadoff, and he's only 3.4K. Obviously, I really like him. You got Jed Lowry at 3.3K, who you could play. Matt Olson's cheap, 4.1K. Even guys like Davis, Simeon are really, really cheap as well. Maybe not Chris Davis, but Simeon's under 4K. Just a team that has a ton of cheap bats. They're implied to score 4.9 runs, which is pretty high for the Athletics. You obviously don't like the ballpark. Playing in Oakland, that's a very pitcher-friendly park, but with it, Bartolo Colon being on the mound, I think the Athletics are definitely in play here, especially given their price tags. They fit really well if you're trying to pay up for pitcher. They fit well as cheap bats you can fill into your lineup. So I love Matt Joyce. Really like pretty much all the guys in their lineup, especially with just their price tags in general. And the Athletics, the Astros, two teams I'm really looking to stack today. If we talk about like other stacks, look at some of the implied run totals on the slate. Mainly the A's and Astros are kind of my two favorite teams. And if we look at other teams, I think like the Red Sox could be pretty sneaky. If you want to go to them, maybe the Blue Jays, because they have a 5.5 implied run total, and they're going up against Ronaldo Lopez, who is not the best pitcher. And their guys are also pretty cheap as well. Justin Smoke, I know he homered on Sunday. I think he actually homered twice. He is very cheap at 3.4K. A guy that's going to be pretty popular today, I think makes a lot of sense. You got Granderson at 3K. Even Donaldson, 4.1K, very cheap. So the Blue Jays, especially if you're looking for cheap guys to fill into your lineup, maybe if you're paying up for pitcher, definitely a team you could look to. That's really it for stacks, at least the teams I'm targeting. Astros are definitely number one for me. And then if I'm looking for cheap fillers, I'm going to definitely look to some of these Athletics guys. Look to some of the guys for the Blue Jays. Even if you want to go to the Red Sox as well, a lot of their players are cheaper than they should be. Mookie Betts is only 4.4. Benintendi's 4K against a righty. Benintendi gets the split there, gets the advantage, so you could play him. But I really think that's it for stacks, guys. At least teams that I'm really targeting today. And then if we look at BVP, talk about some of the top BVP plays on this slate. We do have an early slate today, so you might have players in the early slate shown here. But if we look for some guys like in the main slate, AJ Pollock has done really well against Hyun-Jin Ryu, going 8 for 24, batting a 333 average. Colby Rasmus has done really well against Charlie Morton, 7 for 14, but not really worried there. Ender Inciarte has gone 9 for 22 against Tanner Roark, so for what that's worth, you could play Inciarte today maybe if you want to go to him. If we look for other plays that are in the main slate, some of these Pittsburgh backs have done really well against Lance Lynn, but I don't believe he's going to be pitching in the main slate. That's really it for the main slate. Nick Markakis has done well against Tanner Roark. Paul Goldschmidt's done well against Ryu. Will Myers, 7 for 13 against Chad Bettis, but again, not going to keep me off of Bettis, and obviously Colby Rasmus going 7 for 14 against Charlie Morton's not really going to keep me off of Morton. And if we look at pitchers, really no pitchers that have done great against their matchups today, but if we look at pitchers that haven't had a lot of success on the main slate, Hyun-Jin Ryu, he's kind of struggled against the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks have hit him for a 324 average, going 22 for 68 with 2 home runs, 7 extra base hits. So maybe if you believe in PVB reverse way, then maybe you kind of stay away from Ryu here. But I think that's really it for BVP. I think that's really it for lineups, and I think that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. These are my 5 guys for today that I really like. Charlie Morton, Brian Johnson, Jose Altuve, Josh Reddick, and Matt Joyce. Looking to stack up Houston today. Looking to get some exposure to the Athletics, the Blue Jays. Definitely some teams I'm going to be targeting on this slate. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe. If you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT. Always replying to guys as soon as I can. If you have any questions, you can just DM me. My DMs are open. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck tonight on this slate.